Hey, hey, everyone. It is officially the Breakthrough series, and I have on someone very special, someone who has worked with me through the ups, the downs, the tears, the frustrations, and this was my business coach, Brandon. So, Brandon, let them know who you are, what you do, and why, and then we'll go into your story.
My name is Brandon Sobotka. I am the founder of Emerge Brand Consulting, where we help you take your experience and expertise and leverage that into visibility and profits. So if you're a business person, typically we work with solo or small ops, what we call small ops entrepreneurs, which is someone like Meg.
Yes.
Because you have what? Do you have some people on your team now?
Yeah.
So small ops just means, usually like 3 to 5 people, maybe less than 10. But we help them take the face of their brand, like you, the self-sabotage slayer, or Meg Church, and turn you into the self-sabotage. That's what we do. That's what we do. Mostly it's branding and marketing services. So I'm happy to help anybody who's interested in that.
All right. So one reason why I decided to have Brandon on here is we've had this conversation a lot. Some people that I work with, we have the conversation, but I don't feel like this is put out there enough in the world. So we're changing that. And it's all about how and why you invest in yourself and what that truly looks like. Because for me, being someone who worked with self-sabotage with myself for a long time, I found it in business. And it's not something that goes away, as Brandon will know for himself.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to change the dynamic around that, because I used to view people like Brandon, like other coaches, as people that just magically came out of the womb, just with all this knowledge about business and how to run it and do all the things. But I didn't realize how much they themselves had invested in themselves, in coaching, in courses, in business coaching, whatever, partnerships, whatever. And that needs to change. So I wanted to have someone on that has worked with me a lot. This is very vulnerable for me too, because you've seen it all. And kind of share your experience on where you are now, and then we'll get into what it was like coaching together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the story has evolved over the years, obviously. I've been doing it now since 2007, I think, is when I first started. So it's been 13 years. Originally, it just started, I was kind of like you, and I was working a job that I kind of felt trapped in, or just not, something was missing. And I started a fitness business. That fitness business basically was all about, what we think business is getting clients. I got to get clients, And then we get the clients and we will work as much as needed. And that just doesn't work, because that leads to the burnout and the fatigue and just a nonstop wheel of stress. And so I've evolved past that point, because I eventually failed doing that. And it was in that process that I was like, man, I need to figure out how to run a business properly. And that's when I dove into brand and learning how to develop a brand. And that's led to what we do right now, which is the business of being yourself and creating your own personal brand. And from there, how I got into that was basically the important piece about that, I think, to tie it into your audience, is really that a lot of people separate business from life. And the business of being yourself is really about taking, what do I want in life? And identifying how to implement that within the business around you, your strengths, your ambitions, and the lifestyle that you want. So that's where we're at right now. That's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah. So where was it, or when was it? What was that pivotal time in your life where you had your breakthrough? I know it. I feel like I know what answer you're going to say. But where was that at? And then what started happening afterward?
Well, the first time around, like I said, the story has evolved. Initially, it happened when I went through that burnout. I was just, selling and servicing clients over and over and over. It was a nonstop thing. I was working nights, weekends, until I basically was like, I can't keep this up. and I eventually went broke.
Mm-hmm.
I was so burnt out that I couldn't really function with my clients anymore. It was just like didn't even want to service them. And it was the next day that I basically went to the ATM and I saw, typed in my PIN code, and I had $192 and like 20 some cents left. And that's because I was just investing. And that's what's funny is I was investing back into the business, but it was all based around selling and servicing the clients, not actually building a legit foundation and the systems and the processes that you need. And then I got out of that. But then when I started building this business that I'm in now, the brand business, I think the evolution came when I had Ariana, our daughter, our first kid, and having a family and realizing that, like, I literally cannot even try to do that because there was too much guilt, not being around my kids, not, supporting my wife and things that she was doing, just not being around or trying to do that. And so I literally had to say, all right, what's most important? And once you identify that from a life standpoint, then you can form your business around that. You can form pricing around that. You can form your product packages, your product suite, all that type of stuff.
You know what?
So that's where it kind of,
You didn't even say the thing that I thought you were going to say. I thought
what did you think?
breakthroughs happened before that, when you and Jacqueline, your wife, who connected the two of us, went to Brendan Burchard's event, right? Wasn't that one of the bigger?
No, actually. So, I mean, that was that happened. So I think the point that you're talking about is I was speaking when I was doing my fitness business. I was speaking in corporations. And when I finished each speaking gig, I noticed people wanted something, like, they wanted a book or, do you have anything to sell? And all I had was my services. And I was like, man, I got to learn how to, create a book or something. And when I went online and searched and researched, I was the first person I thought about was Stephen Covey, because that was somebody that I looked up to, because he had that whole 7 Habits, like, product suite of books and video series and all that stuff. And I was like, man, how do you do that? And in doing that, I saw that he just was speaking all the time. And so I held my own event. And at the end of that event, a buddy said, man, you remind me of Brendan Burchard. And I was like, never heard of him. And when I went back home, I found Brendan Burchard, and the product that he was offering at that time was called Total Product Blueprint, which was all about creating your information product suite. So I think that's the part that you were thinking of. And that's when I bought that product, part of the deal was you also get a ticket out to see his conference, which was called Experts Academy. And it was all these marketing gurus, all the stuff that they kind of do today that's kind of normal. But it was at that event that I started to see, like, oh, because they were selling right after they spoke. And so I started to put all the pieces together as I was doing that. But it was just a vision at the time. I didn't really know how all that digital marketing and everything worked like we know now. So that was kind of a mini breakthrough, as we're going to talk about probably. Is there's always these little mini breakthroughs as you can continue to invest. So,
and I think that's the big pieces right there. Is you start with what you can do, even if it's a stretch. Like, I remember when I was in New York, for example, I had a stretch after spending all this money already to invest in yoga because I needed it. I was very high strung, anxious, and I invested in a $30 card, and you could go for as many times as possible. So I maximized that card to get my money's worth.
Oh yeah.
But at the time, that was a lot of money. And then you start doing these other little things to help get you out of your own way. And then you start investing in learning how to become a yoga teacher. And then you learn, all these different things. But I think that there's still something inside of people that prevents them from seeing their worth and prevents them from trusting themselves enough to put money into themselves and show up. And I don't know,
Yeah, I agree.
we want to invest, we want to spend money on all these frivolous things that don't get us the result that we want versus putting money into something that's just going to give you a return over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've learned is I find more satisfaction in investing in something that is unknown than known. Like, sometimes people will invest in a book that they've heard about over and over and over,
Mm-hmm.
rather than jumping on an opportunity that comes about that's exciting, but they're terrified by it because they have no idea what it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the reason I say that is because a lot of times, if we know what the book is about, or if we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into, there's no new learning, or there's minimal new learning. And so I really try and find those things that instantly stretch you from the start. Like, I have to make a decision. This is scary, but it feels right, so let's do it, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's got that sense of adventure to it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
let's see where we're gonna go. Someone said, I'm trying to think who it was, that when you invest in yourself and in coaching, you're basically signing up for anxiety because you're about ready to reach through new heights. And I was like, oh yes, that is definitely on point. And I feel like I I think you would remember this, but what was the point when we started working together? We'd been in a mastermind that you had created. It was small, didn't really know what we were doing, but we did it consistently, mastermind, where there was like 4 or 5 people that were consistent, and then people started falling off, and then it was just you and me.
Yeah.
And we stopped meeting as much, and it was more phone calls. And then what was the time where I reached out to you? What was that like? Do you remember that? Because I remember it. I remember where I was at.
I remember we started it because I remember I started the mastermind because I wanted to connect with more people that were like us, because anybody who's pursuing growth, it seems like we're kind of the only ones doing it. Sometimes we think that, and then bringing everybody together was cool. And then people started falling off, like you mentioned, and I think it was one of our last times that we met together that everyone I invited to the mastermind had a talent. I think this is one of my natural talents, is being able to see other people's potential
Mm-hmm.
earlier than they see their own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think if I said, you can do this, something like that nature, and like call me, set something up or something like that. I don't remember. And then you reached out and you said, I think you said something like, did you talk to somebody or did you ask somebody? I don't remember.
No, I think you were planting seeds some of our last meetings, like, oh, I could help her, but like I gotta be like cool with it. No, I called you at the LA Fitness parking lot. I need help. I need help. Like it was like I need an SOS. Like it's if I don't do this, I don't know if I'm gonna keep going. I was going through a lot of personal things in my life. I needed, essentially, when I can look back on coaching, I needed someone to believe.
Yeah. I mean,
And
that's part of it.
this is something that like can be emotional, I think, for some people, and this probably doesn't surprise you that I'm crying, but people don't talk enough about this journey and how people don't believe in you. You have
Yes.
more people stacked
So
up
true.
against you, even family,
Uh,
even family that aren't present anymore, and the things that
yeah.
they said. And so for me, it was this moment where I was like, help. I need someone to give me a lifeline just to keep me afloat, because no one else believes in what I'm doing. They might say it, but underlying that's not there.
That's so true.
Relationships were falling off, business partnerships were falling off, people were dying in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah,
literally paid someone a lot of money to help keep me afloat and to keep pouring back into belief and trying to help me get out of my own way, because I was stuck. I was hardcore stuck.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point in general. If you're pursuing anything that's out of the norm, which in general for most people is just pursuing that next level you. A lot of people get comfortable with the status quo, right? They stay there. And if you're pursuing things that are outside that status quo, it's almost like you instantly get um, treated as an outsider. And like you said, people will talk trash. People will, say things behind your back. Even those, I think it's very true. Like there were definitely times where, my family had questioned me. My wife, as much as she is super supportive, there were definitely conversations where she couldn't see what I could see because she doesn't sit in this office, for the hours on end, creating and learning and testing things. She just sees the bank account, dwindling at times, or she hears my complaints. And so I think that's the hard part for people who are trying to be supportive, is they don't get to see the progress that may be happening, that is slow. And it's those little micro steps that you as the client, or you as the professional, have to embrace yourself. And you have to know that you are seeing these little micro improvements, micro adjustments that they will never recognize or notice. That has to keep you in the game, because those little micro moments are what become milestone moments, right? And eventually those become, millionaire moments, when you actually start banking on things that people were like, just stop doing that. Why are you working so much? Why are you, watching so many what are courses and reading so many books, all that type of stuff. So it's very important to point that point out for anybody pursuing anything, not just business.
Well, and I also think too, something I didn't realize I was like teaching people is something that you and I had worked on too. I was teaching them prior, but I think I had to learn it even more, was boundaries. Because when you let these things impact you, they're like, it's the whole Brene Brown, like they're not in the arena with you. So why are you letting their input bother you? Like, yeah, it's human nature, but let that stuff go, because they're not putting in the work that you are. They don't see the things that are going on, the money you're investing, the time you're investing, the tears you're crying. I cried during sessions. But
all the time.
Sometimes I felt like I wasn't enough. And then when you put yourself up and you have to, like, it's one thing for you yourself to feel those feelings, but when you're birthing something out into the world and it's a business and it's your products, that's a whole nother level of love. And it's like someone saying, oh, you got an ugly kid, you got this, or, and so learning to have boundaries around, okay, yeah, you can take some positive, negative criticism, but if they're not in that same arena doing something, like, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Like,
yeah, I think the big point is that the big point I would get across is that every client we've worked with, every client, no matter what level, how advanced or how beginner they are, everyone comes into resistance at some point in time. And it's almost like what you said, when you hire a coach, get ready for anxiety, because our job as the coach is to expose that piece that is keeping you from that. And to put it in front of you every session almost, and like, and you don't want to do it. I don't want to face that. I still, I've been doing this, like I said, third process now, and I've had enough coaches that I'm able to work through a lot of that myself, and I'm sure you are too, because you've been doing that. But I run into resistance, and as you've been doing it longer, the resistance you run into at the next level is like, it's deeper, it's more intense, it's more personal. It's a deeper level of subconscious,
it's
bad,
hard.
bad habits that are there. And it's heartbreaking, but at the same time liberating when you have to face it. So I would tell everybody, expect to to feel resistance when you're pursuing any big goal like that.
So one of the things that Brandon really taught me, and there's a lot of different things, but one of the things he really taught me about myself with the whole branding was one of the first sessions we went through together was your archetype, which we don't need to go super businessy, but I was going to tie this back through to give you something that maybe you're like, aha, I see. And we learned that my archetype was more the romantic, which sounds kind of like, what? Like, I mean, yeah, I teach relationship stuff now, but still self-sabotage with coaching and everything. But basically, in a nutshell, it's you being able to see something when someone else doesn't, which is essentially what you do, just in a very different way.
Yeah.
I could see beauty where other people were like, ah.
Yep.
And I think it's not ironic how we're rehabbing a house and you can see beauty where other people are like, oh, this is a dump. And I think that that's something really beautiful that someone else can teach you about yourself so you can turn on your brand even more and point you in the right direction. And I felt like that was like one of those like first big things that we uncovered.
Yeah, I mean, in any one of the obstacles for a lot of people is we don't recognize our own strengths. We don't recognize a lot of times our own ambitions. We don't recognize, you know, the natural talents, you know, all of these things because they come so easy to us. They are our strengths. So we don't have to think about them. They just happen for us. Whereas other people see those. And so as part of the branding process, you know, we make you recognize your own strengths so that you can instill it in everything that you do, right? And so that it's streamlined and so that every experience people have with you is clean, clear, and consistent, but different from other brands. And so I think that's something that once you, honestly, for a while, when I brought that up to you, when we went through the archetype assessment, you could tell there was confusion and overwhelm. But as soon as you nailed that, everything changed. As soon as you're like, I know my brand, you're like, yes. And then you started creating everything. I couldn't even control you. It was like out of control. I was like, geez, okay, she's a monster now.
Well, what do you think my three strengths were that you identified? And then what were my weaknesses? Because I already know, but I feel like you pointed them out too, because you would say them over and over again.
Yeah, I think the weakness piece, obviously, one of the weaknesses was, you know, just clarity. You didn't have clarity as a business owner. You didn't know a lot of business stuff. And even then, it was clarity of the different pieces and parts of your life that you really wanted to involve or not involve. And also there's the clarity of, because I wanted you to just get something out, if you remember that. And you were like, this is one of your other faults, is perfectionism to the T. Like, you were like, we created something. You're like, no, it's not good enough. It's not, I'm not feeling it. You're a feeler. So you're like, it's not feeling right yet. So it would take a lot longer. I think that was probably your biggest one, is the perfectionism. And I say that now because of all the other clients I've worked with since you were by far, this sounds bad, the worst in terms of like, it took you so long to get something out because of that perfectionism. I think another piece was focus. Like, you had so many ideas that it was like one session we were like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And then by the time the next session came around, Branson, this and this and this and this. And so I think those were probably the three that stand out to me right now that I can remember. I mean, it's been how long since we coached? It was
maybe 2 years.
2 years since we finished. So it's been a while. But clarity, focus, and perfectionism, I would say perfectionism was a big one. Your strengths were, I think, number one, you had a desire to want to learn and grow. I think anyone who's trying to take themselves to the next level has to be open to that, because every time you do that, you're going into that uncomfortable space that we just talked about, that
Mhm.
outside the status quo, and there has to be a part of you that's willing to do that, or actually really wants to do that. I
Mhm.
think this is part of your romantic. You were super passionate, and no matter what you did, um, especially when you were creating something, which I think is the third big strength that you had, um, that comes to mind, is you were passionate about what you wanted to put out when you knew what that was.
Mhm.
And you just, when it was time to create, that passion would come into the creation. Because still to this day, this is almost like the perfectionism. Just like you were the worst when it came to the perfectionism, you're probably still to this day the best when it came to creating stuff after you knew what you wanted.
Mhm.
Once you knew what you wanted, you'd go write like 52 pages worth of something. You'd shoot 15 videos, and I'm like, what the hell?
But then I would hide. Then I would
Th-
hide. I would not be consistent and I would hide because it
Yeah,
was like fear of rejection, fear of what someone could say, which it's crazy how that stuff comes up when I don't really care that honestly that much. But it's still like that fear of rejection because maybe something's not perfect or maybe someone's gonna find out you don't know how to do this part or like all
yeah.
those things come up.
I think that's a part of I was including that in the perfectionism. I think that's
Mhm.
where like there was that fear. And so you wanted to make it just, it has to be a little bit better, a little bit better. And I don't know if you ever got there. And I'm thinking you're probably learning that it's never going to be perfect. And part of the process is just getting it out there and people will love you for that. So
Mhm.
it's been, it was
Yeah, explain what coaching was like because it was like this.
yeah, I mean, you're seeing it on this call, kind of,
Mhm.
we would come in and you would have tons of ideas. Like I said, you're like, da, 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 or you get on a call and I could tell either it was extreme ideas or it was extreme emotional. And the emotions I'm so frustrated, or I'm so this or that. And then you'd start crying and I'd be like, oh. And honestly, if I was to explain it now that I'm a father, for 6 years, I would say I kind of felt like I had to be a father in a sense that I couldn't, I had to be very delicate in how I said things so that I didn't already destroy a feeling that was already kind of broken.
Mhm.
Um, and then at the same time, I had to try to get you to understand that, honey, this is going to be hard and we have to do it if you want to achieve the things that you want to achieve. So um, I kind of felt like that that balancing act of being firm like a dad and saying like, babe, this is something that you have to do. You have to learn. Go try it. Almost like a father would like
Mhm.
have their kid. I couldn't coddle you too much. I needed you to learn how to fail doing
Mhm.
some things, because there was a part of you that was like, there were some times where you were like, I knew that you thought you could do it and I knew that you didn't really know, but I'd let you go do it and then you'd fail at it or you'd struggle at it. So that part of like being a father, I think, comes in, which, just so everyone knows, I was an early father at the time, so I didn't know that stuff. But now when I look back on it, that's kind of the feel I have. Um, but that's where it was. I mean, your passion would come out and you'd be really excited. And a lot of times it would evolve during the session. You would be frustrated or you'd have a bunch of ideas. We'd get it in focus. By the end of the session, you knew what you were going to do. And then you'd be like, yes, let's go do it. And then during the week or by the time the next session, it would be that replay. Either a bunch of new ideas and even some progress because your creator would kick in and you'd create a ton of
Mhm.
stuff, or you'd get frustrated and stuck. So I think that's just that cycle of learning, doing, trying, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding, and doing that over and over and over. So I don't know if that
No,
sounds like it.
that's spot on, but I think that that's how different. I mean, I think sometimes I personally felt like maybe I had shame around the way that I did things, but honestly, like you can learn from how you get in your own way, but that's me. And
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
you took it on. You took it on and were like, okay, here we go. But I think that it's similar to the way that I was when I was younger. My parents didn't have to punish me to the level they did my brothers because I already punished myself. I was
Yeah.
already beating myself up. And I think you would be proud of this. This is part of like my own thing that I've created. Like I've had to take a lot of the situations that I personally endured in my life and how did I get through them, like and reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
And so I call it the breakthrough. And it's 3
Yeah.
steps. Keep it simple because people are overwhelmed. And you go through the battle. And this is for anything. It goes from business, relationships, personal stuff, family stuff, whatever. What is that thing that you're battling on one of your worst days? What are the things that you're saying to yourself over and over and over again? Because you think those things aren't going to impact your business. Oh, no, they will. And they're going to be accentuated even more. And you're going to see it on a whole nother level. So you take those things and then you move into the breakup. So you realize that those things that you're saying to yourself is not really you. It's the bully. It's the part of you that's trying to keep you complacent. It's the part of you that's trying to hold you back. It's the part of you that's trying to keep you in that comfort zone. And you literally have to call it out like, bully, we don't have time for this today. And you got to break up with it. You have to replace it. And then the final part is become, which is so fun for me.
Awesome.
I think this is like, Michelle Obama becoming,
Yeah.
but it takes the pressure off. And for me, it's like a cream for a perfectionist wound where it's not about being perfect every day. It's about being 1% better every day. And so that's what it is. Like truly you have to break up with all of those things and remember who you want to become. Would the person you would like to become, would they be talking to themselves like this right now?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're not going to have the tantrums. It doesn't mean you're not going to have the tears, but you can catch yourself in it.
Yep.
Be like, let's move through. And I thought you would like the whole little.
No, it sounds like a 3-step framework to me.
It does. It does. But I think that that's the biggest thing is when you're going through something and you don't know how to get out of it, and you keep beating yourself up and you keep beating yourself against the wall, and you just like
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
you really can get through, or is it something you need help on? For me, I realized I needed help. So I said, SOS, Brandon Sobotka, help me. You were part of my breakthrough with a lot of that. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I can't invest at that level. I don't have any money. Okay, let me see what you're spending your money on.
yes.
And then the other thing I want people to know, when I charge a certain price and when you charge a certain price, I hustled my butt off to be able to afford you. I worked a night job to be able to afford you. I lost my dad and almost lost my business at the same time and said, you know what? I need to do something. I need to be humbled. I need to go back into the server restaurant world and work to keep afloat. And that thing saved me.
Yeah.
And then I was able to use that money and pour it into you so you could pour back into me.
Yeah, I think that's the piece that's, the society norm is to get comfortable, live the American dream of having a home, having a family, having the kids, and you get comfortable in that status quo. But I think you lose something when you do that, right? You lose something inside that I think we're naturally designed to continue to evolve ourselves. Like I want to learn more. I want to know more. I want to better understand the world so that I can give more or be more within it. Especially when you start having kids and all these other factors where you are the direct role model of them. And it's like, oh, I got to be better. So I completely agree. And I love the 3 steps because it's very much, I love the becoming or become part, because it's exactly why we named Emerge, because you never stop emerging, just like you never stop becoming. It's an ongoing process of, just like you said, those 1%, how can I get a little bit better? How can I get a little bit better and break out of those bad patterns or improve some of those bad patterns that we have?
So I'm going to ask you an additional question on here, which will be fun and it'll make your wife very happy.
Uh-oh.
Because I'll probably have you, we'll probably have you and Jacqueline on at some point when we do relationship stuff. But
Cool.
I personally, we worked together when I was going in and out of a bad relationship and didn't realize it at the time. And then, brought on the love of my life and the game changed.
Yeah.
What the power of having someone that is supportive and is there during the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, the like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? Oh my gosh, should I quit? Oh my, like all the things. How vital is that to make sure that you invest in her and her back into you on this journey?
It's huge. I mean,
She's
like I started my,
commenting.
oh, has she? I actually, well, when we first got together, that was part of our agreement. We had first we communicated, I think is very important, right? We communicated and said, I told her, this is what I want to do. And I warned her of the potential ups and downs, both what because a lot of people just talk about the promise, but I also talked about, hey, this is what could potentially happen that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And are you willing to take on that adventure, right?
Yep.
And she was like, she thought about it, and then she was like, let's do it. I'll help you. And she was totally there. However, like when we did that, basically what we said, we made an agreement. All the money that I make from the business goes back into the business, and she takes care of the household payments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when that was going on, then there was the disconnect of she didn't understand business and all the things that I was doing from a business standpoint. And so when I was doing things, there was that disconnect. And so that's one of the reasons that, other than the fact that she had a nice following of people who hung on her every word almost, I saw that potential in her, and I wanted to help her start her business. So once we started her business, she got to experience like, whoa, this is what it's like, the creating, the staying on the calendar, the engaging with your audience all the time, the servicing clients over and over and over. She got on the treadmill and she started to see it. And now it's priceless because she gets it. When I have a problem, she lifts me up. And not that she didn't lift me up before, but now I can have the conversation and she can get it and give me feedback that's objective and is aligned with what I actually need. Whereas before it was just emotional support. Now it's like she gives me ideas and vice versa. Same thing when she's struggling, like, hey, you can't be falling off on this. This is where your clients start to disappear if you continue to do that. So all of that together is so huge, especially because what you had mentioned earlier is there's not a lot of people around who are pushing themselves to the level of running a business. And even then, there are levels within running a business that once you move from level 2 of a business, speaking to a level 1 person is helping them, but it rarely helps you. And that happens at different levels every time. And that's why, like, when you hire a coach, you at least want to hire a coach or a consultant or whoever that is a level ahead of you. So that way they can speak your language and they understand what you've been through. But it's not just one-sided. So from a relationship standpoint, it's been awesome. And it continues to evolve. It was funny that you brought that up because this morning we were laying in bed after we let Ariana get on the bus, and she asked a question. How's our relationship? I don't know where it came from. It just came up. And I said, it's good. And she was like, well, that's not exciting or something like that. And what I was saying is that in detail, what I mean is that it's literally better this year than it was the year before. And every year it's done that because we've tried to improve, I think, on every aspect of our lives together. And I think something that's really cool is we don't limit each other we lift each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we set goals, I tell her, go set your biggest, baddest, awesome goals. And then I'm going to go do the same with mine. And then when we bring them back, we're not going to downplay each other's extreme goals. We're going to figure out how can we help each other get there. Whereas some people say, when I set goals, I have to sacrifice something in order to achieve that goal. I think that is something as a culture that we have succumbed to, rather than, because it's hard, it's extremely hard trying to figure out how to do both of these big ass goals. And really there's many of them, excuse my language, there's many of these big goals together, because we get selfish as an individual. Well, she's getting all the attention, or I'm getting all the attention, and you start to almost sabotage each other. And then you start to feel bad, and then you start sabotaging yourself because you feel like you're hurting them, rather than talking to each other and communicating and saying, how can we make this happen? So it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think that more talks about that stuff need to happen too. Like lows, and it'd be fun to, like I said, have both of you guys on, and she would love that. She's been commenting, I can't wait to get on there and like say stuff. But this morning I was telling Derek, I was like, we had a long talk. Like, instead of going to the gym, we went on a walk, and we just had to, like, we've got a lot on our plate right now. So it's like, sometimes you just need to move and have a conversation together and like work through stuff. And it's like, yeah, there's some things that may not be where you want them to, but like, what are you learning along the way? That's the priceless thing. That's the thing that money can't buy.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, like, there's some times where I can be her anchor, meaning not a good anchor, not holding her down and not holding her down in a good way, right? Slowing her down and holding her down in a bad way, and vice versa, because of the different growth of each other, right? Like, she may be growing in one area faster than I, and I don't recognize that, but I complain about it, right? I have some ill feeling towards it. And vice versa. So it's the same thing you see in a relationship. We're all growing at these different places at different times in different speeds that you have to adjust to on the fly. And if you don't have that communication, if you don't have that openness, if you're not able to be, if you don't trust them enough to be vulnerable and to be open, then those things aren't going to improve. They're just going to start bleeding into your life, bleeding into your business, and then bleeding into all the other aspects that the business is providing for you. So
I think it's like the coolest thing though, when you do have that person that is kind of like, you got your own little secret club, and like, you two are the only ones that know the password. No one else knows what's going on, but you do. Like, whether or not you're the one pushing or pulling or whatever it is that day, no one else knows what's truly going on. And it's a beautiful thing when you realize, yeah, you could have moved pretty far on your own, but when two of you come together, it's like I know for me, and I know you feel like this too, I'm pretty sure, you look at her just like I look at him, and I'm like, there's no one else I could do these things with. Not at this level. And it's like the best feeling ever. And for me, going through relationship boot camp for free ever, it's like, oh, hallelujah.
Yeah, no, it is true. I mean, it is true. Like, when you hear those sayings like, power couple, like, there is another level of strength, another level of security, another level of, work ethic that comes with it, just because that other person is supportive and understands. So it's awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to go back through and look at some of her comments on here.
Oh, geez, here we go.
Okay, so any little takeaways, words of advice, brandisms that you want to leave everybody with, or whatever?
I mean, I think the first thing is if you are interested in starting or growing your own business and building a brand of your own, you have to understand all the things that you've been talking about. You have to know what you want in your life first. You have to know yourself, and then you have to know what does that look like in business form, and how does the business complement that. Whereas a lot of people, I think, jump into business saying, this is what I want to do. It's going to be awesome. It's going to create the life that I want. So it's done opposite, right? It's actually, this is the life I want. How does my business complement that? And that's the process that we take people through in the business of being yourself. And for anyone who wants to, for your audience alone, I'm going to offer up a brand awakening strategy session, which just helps them identify those things. And typically that's a $300 cost, but I'm going to have your audience, whoever watches this, will use the breakthrough password when you schedule a session, and I'll give Meg the link. But use that link when you set your appointment time. Use the word breakthrough, and you'll get it for free. You get to sit down, and we'll talk for 60 to 90 minutes about how we can make the business of being yourself true for you.
Guys, you can cry. Let me tell you.
I will allow it.
Well, thank you, Brandon, so much. It was awesome to reconnect and just have you be on here and tell it how it is and hopefully inspire someone or some people to get out there and really figure out, hey, they may need help in this area, and you're the right person to send them your way.
I appreciate it. It was awesome being on here. Great to see how much you've grown. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. We will stay connected.
Deuces.
Bye, guys.